All right, we're live. Happy Thursday, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our live stream tonight. This is an exciting one for me. I'm trying to work in a very different style because our guest tonight is not only an incredible artist, well, an incredible inker, and I want to say incredible inker because really the first part of our stream is about the art. He's also a pencil. He does everything, and he is really dynamic and wild with his figures. I mean, they're really inventive, and it's not something that I do. My art is, it's a little bit more Jim Lee and Mark Silvestri and the Image guys, and that kind of vein. Kevin Nolan, whereas this is, I swear I can see some Michael Golden in there, even, and just a lot of really interesting, like wild influences. And so I really wanted to try and do that. And we did a preliminary drawing for this one tonight, just tight or just loose. Sorry. So I've got mine here. We're going to draw these. And actually, you can see Eric's just over here in the lower right-hand corner. I should introduce... Shawn, I'm the worst host ever. I'm so sorry.
It's whatever.
It always goes this way. So tonight, we have an absolutely incredible artist. Also, he has ink pulp. It's inkpulpinstruction.com. You can go there. He has so much instruction on comic art, all aspects of it. It's a treasure trove of incredible information you can find there. I highly recommend that you go check it out. We're going to be talking about that a lot tonight, too. We're going to be talking about inking. And we'll be inking with some very unusual tools. Certainly new for me. I'm very, very excited about it. I'd really like to welcome. I'm very honored to have Shawn Crystal with us tonight. Thank you so much for coming on, Shawn.
Thank you for having me, Dave. I appreciate it. Shawn. And you did nail some of my influences. I mean, Michael Golden, obviously. It's funny you said Kevin Nolan about your work, because Kevin Nolan's one of my all-time top favorite artists. And my style, I remember I was in art school, and I remember in my head I was like, I want to like combine Bruce Timm and Kevin Nolan, and so I can like do all this like cool rendering on these animated figures. And so that's always kind of in the back of my head.
That's such a great combination, and it's something at conventions I see artists that try and do more cartoony work. And I mean, sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's, it's tougher, I think, than people think. And especially a lot of times you just don't see the grounding in anatomy, and you don't see the grounding in lighting, especially.
That's true. That's true.
It's very, very common. When it gets more cartoony, lighting kind of goes away. And so to be able to mix that with like a Kevin Nolan, that kind of, and you do it beautifully. And Michael Golden is so great at lighting too. And
yeah. It's funny because when I started art school, I was super cartoony, like really influenced by Humberto Ramos and Joe Madureira. But I was also like, I was very academically minded. So when I got to school, it was like the first quarter, I realized like, I'm really not understanding what I'm doing. I'm just copying what I've seen done. And I remember I completely abandoned the style and just went for absolute realism and took photographs of every panel I had to draw. And like I had studio lights and was lighting everything up. And I spent a lot of time in the George Bridgman books, and I gained all this like academic art knowledge. And then it was actually my first job at DC. It started out with more realism, and finally by the end, I felt like I'd found myself, and the cartooniness was coming back with that academic knowledge.
Yeah, and it is unfortunately an unusual combination. There's just not enough of that. So,
I just feel like when I draw, when I try to be super naturalistic or realistic, it just looks boring. Like I'm not good at it. Not that people who work that way are boring. My work in that vein is boring.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, there are people that do like Tim Bradstreet. It's hyper realistic. If I ever try to be more realistic than I am, I find it falls flat. I can't pull it off. So it always depends on the artist. But
sure, absolutely.
So before we start, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the tools that you use and
sure. Let me I'll switch my camera so I can. Let me switch my camera here real quick.
And while you get that set up, Henry Jeremick asked about the book that I'm working on, and I keep having uh, more and more of it done, and I just got script. Well, that's because I've been getting script as I go along. So there you go, Henry.
All right, so Dave, you want me to talk about tools or process or all of the above?
Well, let's talk about tools right now because we can talk about process as we go, I think.
Okay, cool. All right, so tools just for penciling because I'm gonna transfer the. This is a light box I have here. It's a light pad, which these things are amazing. Um, I'm just gonna be using a lead holder, typical clutch grip lead holder to pencil with, and this is one of the erasers I use. Now, when we get to inking, I'm gonna do this twice. So what I've really become known for is my brushwork. And so I'm gonna do this like really nice and controlled and really lean into my brushwork with that. But then I was watching the Jim Mahfood episode, and Jim's got me always wanting to like loosen up and let go and play more. So I'm gonna ink it a second time with this nice little calligraphy nib, the parallel pens, and I have this art pen thing, which is just like a fountain pen steel nibs. And what's weird about these tools for me is they're metal, and I've never been comfortable inking with metal tools. I've always just been really comfortable with a brush, so the result makes me really wacky, but it'll be fun. It'll be something to talk.
Oh, we're losing the microphone.
My microphone?
Yeah, it kind of, but it's back, so we're good. I don't know what happened.
Okay, I don't know what happened.
I think it just got a little muffled for a second there. It was strange.
Is it
Yeah,
too close? Maybe
I
it's too
don't know.
close.
Technology it just does that.
Did I need to repeat, or did everything come
Oh
through?
no, that was just it was like 3 words. So yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. 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 Okie
All right.
dokie. So yeah, I'm gonna be doing this Batman, and the first thing I guess we'll pencil, but you can see I did a little tiny thumbnail. I mean, you can see it's not that big, and I've just blown it up in Photoshop and printed it out so I can lightbox it.
And any other artist would walk away. So you're done. That's it.
Not me. I'm a little crazy. So yeah, the penciling shouldn't take long. I mean, it is basically done, and I'm not gonna try to make like really pretty pencils. I'm just gonna try to get it transferred.
All right. Well, while you get that set up, I mentioned Ink Pulp, the website. I was wondering if you'd talk about that a little bit and tell people what they can expect on there and why they should
Sure.
sign up.
So I have a background in teaching art. Like I said earlier, I'm very academically minded. So to me, art is like the reason I love to do it every day is I'm always looking to learn and gain knowledge and understand what I'm doing and do it better. So I after I got out of grad school, I ended up teaching for a little while, and I ended up with a friend of mine. The two of us started the sequential art department at SCAD in Atlanta. And shortly after they opened, he got bumped up to dean, and I got pushed up to department chair. So me and my friend, we built the whole department, every class, and taught every class, and
That
ran
is
the
a big, big
department.
school too. I mean, that's an important school. I know of so many people that have come from that program. I hear
Yeah,
about it all the time.
they've got a very good reputation. It's
Yeah.
so yeah, after so and while I was there, I was working for Marvel exclusively as well, and it was a bit of a rough way to be working two full-time jobs like that. But
Yeah.
I did it. And so I eventually left teaching so I could just pursue my art. And I miss teaching. I didn't miss working for like somebody, but I missed teaching. And when COVID, like shortly before COVID hit, I was like, I want to get back to teaching, but I want to do it on my terms. And I came up with this idea. And my original podcast editor used to have a videography studio, a business. And I called him up. I was like, hey, I want to do these instructional videos that are that teach comic art. I want to do a lot of them myself, but I want to travel around and go to artist studios, and I want it to be like an inside the artist studio type
Yeah,
of video.
I've wanted to do that for a while, and just logistically, it's always so tough.
Yeah, it cost me a lot of money to make these videos. So I did
There's
a
a
handful
question, by the way, Sean. Can a light box work with a comic book drawing paper? I'm assuming he means Bristol.
Bristol board. Yeah, I mean, I'm using Bristol board right now. This is a Strathmore 500 series Bristol
And
board.
that's a 500 is actually very thick. It's quite a bit thicker than what I use, and it works
Yeah.
just fine.
Yeah, and the other thing is I have my table lights on so you all can see, but typically I turn them off. Actually, let me see what happens if I turn them off, and you can see even better. If this was a drawing that needed more work, see, yeah, you can see it. You can't see the
Oh yeah,
pencil so good, but yeah, so you can see. I mean, it's like transparent, but this is thick board.
Dustin says, "So excited that you are here. Love your style."
Oh, thank you, Dustin. So yeah, so back to Dave, your question. So I had visions of grandeur. I was like, this is going to be so great. Everyone's going to love it, and I wanted to get into the mind of the artist because when I was a student, the most helpful tool for me was to be able to sit down with a professional working artist while they were working and ask them questions as they went.
yeah.
So, and I found that there's a lot of artists, a lot of amazing artists who are great at the work they do, but they're not great at explaining what they do. So there was only a handful of people I found that were really great at explaining, and like Brian Stelfreeze being like the main one. And
It
so I
is
thought like
very true, though. Yeah,
I thought that if I could do this with, because I'm also like I have a natural ability to explain and teach what I'm doing. So it's like if I can like go interview people while they're working, I can pull the information out of them that would really help people learn what they're doing. So that was the that's where ink pulp instruction started. I did a handful of videos myself in the beginning, and then we flew around. I went to Sean Murphy's studio and filmed with Sean. I went to Tommy Lee Edwards. I went up to Toronto and shot with Ramon. I went down to Florida, shot with Jeff DeCal. I went out to Portland and shot with Jim Mahfood.
it's a great list of
And
artists.
yeah, I mean, these videos I think are probably some of the best insight into all these different artists' techniques and way of working. And they're all on my website, inkpulpinstruction.com. I am in the process of revamping the website. It's up and everything's available, so you can get it. But I've learned a lot over the past few years of trying to do this academic pursuit, and I have some better ideas on how to present the stuff and what to do. So I'm actually this weekend filming. I'm going to film a series for my YouTube channel, like a 7-part series I mapped out today on figure drawing, so that I can it'll be free on my YouTube channel, and just to give everyone sort of a taste of what the teaching is like and
Wow,
see what that
that's
does.
great. It's an undertaking, figure drawing. There's just so much ground to cover.
Yeah.
I've been picking at it over time on my channel, and there's just so much more.
Well, I gotta be honest. I mean, Dave, your channel has inspired me and taught me so much. I think you're doing so much so well where I think I fell short. I'm honestly trying to bring some of what I've seen you doing into the world of what I'm doing. I mean, like your thumbnails, like just your thumbnails on your YouTube channel are great eye grabbers, and really, and the videos are so full of great information.
Thank you. I've very much made the conscious decision. I thought, okay, there are artists with YouTube channels that they're like big personality people, they make it super
Right.
entertaining. I thought, okay, I can't be that guy. It's not gonna happen. So I need to just pack it with, stuff.
Yeah, but that's what I love about your channel is it's not a show. I mean, it's we're on a show right now, but it's serving a purpose. I think that's the one thing, like, I had trouble with social media, understanding how to use it, because I'm not a showman. Like, I'm not the type of person to be like, hey, here's something I drew. Cool, isn't it? And the teacher in me was like, well, why don't I, if we could use these platforms to pass knowledge forward, then it gave me an understanding of what I wanted to do with social media.
Yeah. Chris Olette says, hell yeah, Dave, get stretchy. I'm trying. I'm trying to push it. This feels so different for me, the way that I'm drawing right now. And I think part of it too is to have a cartoony style, like what you have. Like you said, it's not something you can just jump into. I mean, you can, it just won't be as strong. It's something you have to develop over time. And because it's not what I do, there are just so many graphic things just with that simple, and it's just a picture from a thumbnail still at this stage.
Yeah.
But just graphically, it's so strong. And
you know what? It's funny. I just think, like, we as artists, like, we have our way of seeing and drawing. I mean, I feel like, I look at your style and I'm like, that is so advanced, and I'm so primitive in what I do. I shouldn't say primitive. I'm so graphic. Like, you're like a like, you bring the school of Renaissance to your work. I'm like a graphic designer with a pencil.
I'm gonna jump in here for 1 second, just because Jim put a super chat in here for you guys. I'm super excited for the stream. Ink Pulp is an incredible resource. I can't recommend it enough. It is very much worth checking it out. Shawn,
thank you.
Your style has a lot of elements that I hope to achieve more in my work.
Well, that's awesome.
Thank
you so much, Jim.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
Chat. Oh wait, that's the wrong one. I don't have labels on this. Hang on. Is that it? That's it.
Yeah, that's it. There you go. There you go.
I need to find my labels. What's the next one?
There's another one.
That would have been bad too.
Gaming Mule says, hi, Dave. Absolutely love your work and videos, but being from the UK, never get to watch your streams. But I'm off to work this week and made a point to stay up late tonight. Super pleased to be here.
Thank you so much, Gaming Mule, and thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. It's great to have you here. I'm glad that you could come for this one. I think this one is going to be really, really great. I'm already enjoying this a lot. This is something I wish I could do this, like, and I keep saying, just with my tutorial stuff, you can't learn this stuff all in one shot. This takes time.
Right.
It'd be great to basically it takes Shawn time to a chair and make him do this like 20 times so we can get a better, But because we can't do that, you can go to his website and you can find all kinds of incredible tutorials. Plus, a lot of great insights from some incredible artists. Sean Murphy, by the way, he's got a couple of just YouTube videos that somebody posted. I think he went and talked to the school, a few minutes each, and I learned so much from those. For instance, I learned how to draw wheels properly.
Oh,
Basically,
Sean's great for that. Yeah.
Ovals in perspective. I've been working for probably at that point, I want to say about 24 years in comics, and I was doing it wrong. So, so definitely check it out. And it is inkpulpinstruction.com.
Yeah. And if you follow my socials and my YouTube channel, I put a lot of, like, I call them bite-sized lessons on there. And also my newsletter. I've turned my newsletter into basically once a month you get a free lesson. I just wrote my newsletter today for April 1st. And it's on my dry brush technique, like the paper I use. I mean, it's all stuff I'll be talking about here.
Yeah, that's I was very, very excited about being able to show some of that stuff here. I was watching Shawn work. I think we were in Florida and just watching him do some of his pictures at the show. It was nice because it was a great show, but because it was just comic art collectors, it was much quieter than a lot of shows. So there's a little time to get up and see other artists work, and something that we don't always get the chance to do.
Yeah, that was really nice. I can't wait to go back. I'm so excited.
Yeah, if they won't have us,
that experience.
If they won't have us next year, we're just going to crash it.
Yeah, that's what we'll do. That sounds like a plan.
Artist Music says, I'm so glad I can actually join one of these live. I always been watching the recorded streams and can never catch you live.
Thank you so much for being here. And you know what? If you can't watch it live, so if this is tomorrow and you're watching this now, I still really appreciate it. You still get so much out of it, and you're still part of our community here. So that's totally okay. But it is great to have everybody here live.
Yeah, and I have to thank you again, Dave, for inviting me on the show. I'm super honored to be here and excited to be doing this with you guys.
Awesome.
Patrick Bosworth has a question. Can you both talk about how you approach shape design in your work? You both lasso shape in a strategic and design-focused way. What do you prioritize when simplifying?
So I'm going to say this first because I really want to hear what John has to say. So I'll make mine quick. I learned and I'll just show you. I learned really, really early on when I got to Top Cow Productions. So this is my first job. I would draw, like I've got a figure here and I'd want to put a shadow in there. And I just start going like this and trying to get that in there. And I've got another one here. See, I'm already trying to outline it. And I would try and draw it in there. And Mark Silvestri came by and said, no, you want a shadow. You need to figure out that shape and then you can fill it in. And it's much easier to fill in, but you also get a much stronger shadow shape. So that's the way that I understand it.
Yeah, it's funny. I think we probably have a similar school of thought there. For me, everything's about shape. I'm always trying to make interesting shapes, and it's why I don't think when I try to draw realistically, it looks good, because the shapes I can't find interesting shapes without exaggerating. And it was I never understood how to render form with light and shadow until I discovered the work of George Bridgman. And I know, Dave, you've got like videos about George Bridgman, but
yeah.
What he did for me was he broke everything down to, I mean, I'll use a complicated word, planometric anatomy, but it was just geometric shapes. Like if you can understand the edges of a cube, it's so easy to understand light is hitting this side, but not that side. So that side of the cube will be in shadow. So it was spending a lot of time with Bridgman with his anatomy and learning the geometric planes of that anatomy. And then I could apply that more academic knowledge to any sort of shape I made. So you'll see a lot of my work is very angular. And it's because if I don't have that angular side to things, I don't understand really how to light it. And it's funny because when I got my first job at DC and I was really doing a deep dive on Bridgman, I mean, it was like every panel I was like, I got to open up Bridgman, and here's an arm. I gotta learn how to do that arm. I started discovering Mignola did the same exact thing.
Oh, you can
and there
see
were panels.
Yep, absolutely. Sorry, I'm totally interrupting, but over the years, there's a Superman book, or maybe a couple of Superman books, where there are figures in there that they're Bridgman, right? Like straight up almost.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, there's some panels in Fawford and the Grey Mouser that I was like, I've drawn that torso so many times out of the Bridgman book too. And then, of course, Mignola's work really helped me because I felt like I worked so geometric. It was probably, I felt like I was crude. Like I really didn't understand form that well. But diving into Mignola's work, I was like, oh man, I think I'm okay. Like this is such a focus on design, and comics is such a graphic medium. It makes sense to work this way, and it's okay to work that way. I guess it made me feel like I wasn't like out of my league. It made me feel like I was in the right place.
Yeah,
there's a super chat, or actually two of them. The first one is from ODM saying, "Hey Dave, so Tony, be watching him live tonight. Shawn, for you, where do you get your Kolinsky brushes? I cannot find them anywhere."
It's a good question. I was just saying, like, I was writing my newsletter out, and in my newsletter, I talk about the brush I use, which is a Raphael 8404. And I was putting links in my newsletter to every material I use. And then I got to the brush. I was like, oh, right. You can't get these now. I have a stockpile, but I also have a good friend that lives in Italy named Matteo Scalera, and they can get them. So whenever Matteo's doing a show in the States and I'm going to see him, or whenever we're doing a show together anywhere, I'll say, hey, can you grab me 10 Raphaels? and he'll grab them. So I've got a decent stockpile, but every now and then they pop up online. Sometimes I found them on Amazon. It's been a while though, so I did a bit of a deep dive on this because you could get these brushes fine, and then COVID hit, and that's when I remember when I was teaching, they were getting a little tricky to get a hold of, and I asked my art supply rep what's going on, and he told me that the issue was the United States had put a ban on sable brushes,
Yeah.
and so they couldn't import them. But what my art rep told me was, but Kalinskis aren't sable; they're Kalinsky. So shortly after that, they did show up again, and because that little loophole worked, okay. But then COVID hit, and they just vanished. So I did a little bit more of a deep dive, and the information I got was that the supply chain, because remember after COVID, there were so many issues with the supply chain,
Yeah.
was completely disrupted, and the companies were having trouble getting the stuff they needed to make the brushes, and then getting them to the States was a whole nother issue. But that should be resolved by now, and it's not, which leads me to believe we're dealing with some import issues again.
Yeah. I've got one still. I used to have about 10 of these, and who knows where they went, but I still have one, and hopefully this will last because I don't know where I'll find one after that.
Yeah, well, I got you, David. If you need one, let me know. It's great because honestly, I hit a point where I was getting low and I was getting nervous, and I think I said something on Twitter, and Phil Hester hit me back pretty quick, like, "What's your address?" And he mailed me 5 brushes that he had sitting around for like 10 years.
Oh, that is
And
so
I'm
nice.
Is there
ever
any
grateful
synthetic
for that.
brushes that you like, Shawn?
I've messed with synthetic brushes. These brushes right here, Jonathan Glapion turned me on to. They're called Rosemary and Company, and they're the Michael Klein brushes. And they work decent. I've done stuff with them, but they're only like $2 a brush, and they only last for like a drawing. And but it's still there's just nothing like these Kalinskis. There just isn't.
Have you tried
The tip? Go ahead.
these things here? And I don't know where mine is right now, but this thing here, and it's got a brush that attaches to it. I've got one somewhere,
Yeah.
but what do you think of these?
You know what I like about those? I like sketching with those, just straight to brush.
Mm-hmm.
Those are great for that. And I've played with filling them with ink and inking. I can get some decent results out of them. The problem with those is the base of the brush is so fat. It's just too much for me. So I got a smaller one, and then I didn't love the tip. I'm just a prima donna with my Kalinsky brushes, basically.
Yeah, well, I'm actually starting to change myself. I went from using more traditional tools to using these kinds of brushes because sitting at my desk was just getting painful. Honestly, like just so many years of it. But I got a new chair. I've got these like little seat cushions here. This is what happens.
Do too. I have the same thing.
And I'm finding I'm actually very comfortable and I'm more productive at my desk. Shocker,
Yeah.
I know, but so I'm using a brush a lot more, like a proper brush, and I'm finding I can get through most of my pages with a brush before I ever have to move on to, anything like a micron or something like that. So
Yeah. I honestly it was a lazy thing, but I learned to do everything with the brush. Like I ink architecture with a brush, I ink letters with a brush, and it was just
did you say
because
that's lazy? Did you say inking architecture with a brush is lazy?
It's lazy because the reason I was forced to learn to do that was I didn't feel like putting my brush down and picking up another tool. I was just in the groove and I wanted to keep going.
Yeah.
So it was lazy in that sense. But after a while, and I'll show you, like I'm about ready to ink, but when we're inking, I'll show you like I can pull like these long straight lines just with a brush without a ruler now, which is it's a really peaceful feeling when you get into that.
What is your technique for that? Or do you want me to give you a second and we'll talk about that once you start inking?
Yeah, I'll talk about it when I'm inking. Yeah. It's not so much. I'll explain it.
And we do have another super chat, by the way. Actually, two more. So Sprawl says, 2 of my favorite artists. This is awesome. Hey, Shawn, was wondering, do you use a light box method for every piece and the ones you do for acrylics?
Yeah, so typically I work this way, and I'll show you, because like on this sheet, I have all these sheets of paper where I work out my thumbnails and compositions really small. So like here's a Scarlet Witch that I just wanted to do for fun.
That's
And
great.
here's an Aeon Flux commission I'm working on. I don't know if it's clear enough. Yeah, I guess it is. But so I try to draw these small things, because if my shapes are interesting at that tiny little size, then I know they're good. If I start working too big, I lose control. And that's kind of like everyone's drawing Wolverine but me, and that's my fault, because I drew this Wolverine where I just went onto the paper with a pencil to block it in, and it's so big and all over the place. Um, and
I
I
wasn't going
didn't
to say
think
anything, but yeah, we did agree on Wolverine. That's
yeah,
all
I
right.
know. I messed up. I messed up.
It's all
But
right.
well, the thing is, so I didn't feel like let me grab the drawing.
So speaking of Jim Mafood earlier, he's in the chat. He's saying hello to David and Jason.
Oh yeah,
What's up,
great.
Jimmy?
Great to have him here. Good. Thanks for
And to
coming by.
Well, there's another super chat, and then we'll scroll down a bit. But Johnny D says, platforms like this have enabled me to learn without feeling down by my lack of ability. It allows me to strive to be better and have fun.
Awesome.
Well, that's great,
great
and thank
to
you for
hear.
being here. And also know that we all feel that way. There are and I'm sure you know a few, Shawn, also professionals that really don't feel any kind of insecurity,
Yeah,
but they probably
yeah.
should. Those ones, the more insecure artists are usually the best, because it takes that kind of self doubt to keep pushing yourself to grow. So that doubt you feel, while it's a burden, it's what makes you better.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think I started feeling comfortable with my work until maybe 2 years ago.
That is
What
a
changed?
long time.
Um, that's a good question, Jay. I feel like all the time I spent working like for Marvel and DC, I was trying to fit my work into those houses, and at some point I felt like I wasn't being myself anymore, and I had lost touch with my roots of me as an artist. So when COVID hit and publishing shut down, it just and I just started painting, learning to paint, and I was just doing commissions. I was like, oh, I can just lean into the way I really want to work, and I did, and I would some pieces I went super crazy cartoony, and some I didn't. I started redesigning all these characters. Like I did a redesign on Batman for fun. I mean, just like this Batman right here, I would have never gotten this cartoony when I was working on Batman. I don't think DC would have liked it, but I also just I don't know. I felt like I was always trying to fit in, and I think that's a bad. My point is that's a bad thing to do, to try to change your work to fit in. I think when you're more honest with your work, you'll feel better and the work will look better.
Yeah, I think that's true. I'm always conflicted, because the truth is that it's an easier career when you work in a style that people are a little bit more familiar and comfortable with, and obviously you want to have your own identity too. But it is easier.
Sure. Yeah.
Uh, but the rewards of doing something your own way and really being creative with it, and being successful with that, it means that nobody can replace you. You end up being the one and
That's a good
only, and
point.
people can come along and copy you, and that's fine, but they'll never be the original. And there's not
Yeah,
many artists that can really say that.
that's very true. And it's getting back to another episode of yours, and to answer your question even further, Jay, it was when I became really good friends with Mahfood, and watched what he was doing, and watched how he had built this sort of cottage industry unto himself. I mean, he bent the industry to his way of doing things.
Mhm.
And that really made me think, like, wow, that's a powerful thing he's done. I would love to do that.
Yeah, yeah. It's such a tough way to go, and I mean he's such a genius with what he does.
No doubt.
Greg says, "Hey guys, good to see another stream." There's a super chat for $1.99.
Thank you so much, Greg. Good to see you here. And I noticed his thumbnail. It's
It's your static.
yeah.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
But yeah, let me real quick. I was starting to explain this. So this is the Wolverine I started with,
Right.
and I mean, looking at it now, it's not terrible. I showed it to Jim because I was really uncertain about it. I was like, I don't know if I got my shapes right. Like, is it interesting? Is it? And I was like, let me just. And so I put it aside for a day and let it sit there. And I kept looking at it like, yeah, no, that's good. That's good. It's fine. And then I just sat down, and in like 15 minutes, I just like wanted to play with a Batman, and I was like, oh, that's so much more interesting. Like the shape I'm using for Batman here,
Mhm.
just all of like the chin to the cutting in around the jaw, like all that to me is like that's a really interesting silhouette. Where the Wolverine one felt to me like it was just a little more typical and not very interesting for me. But also, I go ahead.
That is such a self-criticism, which I mean we all do, but
Yes.
because I think it looks amazing, and I think everybody watching thinks it looks amazing.
Oh, thank you.
But I know where you're coming from. You know what you're trying to get, and you're the only one that really knows that. So
Yeah, that's true. And I also so in doing the Batman, I was like, ooh, I could do this um 2 times. Like I could ink this the way I normally ink, and I'm trying to spend more time just playing. I was like, so why don't we do one like I normally do, which I'm about to do in a minute here, and then after that I can do another one where I'm just playing with tools that are completely uncomfortable for me, and it'll be just like a really fun let go, let loose thing. And I thought
There's
that
there's another super chat from Johnny for $5 saying artists like the late Neil Adams really knew how to blend semi-realism with a cartoony style really well. I always was in awe of it.
yeah, for sure, I would put him on the more realist kind of side of. There are certainly artists that are more realistic, and he's very dynamic. He's a comic artist, and that's why he was so influential. But I would put him definitely more on the more realist kind of side. Certainly more realistic, I think, than I can pull off. And that's because he had a long career as an illustrator also, and so he took a lot of those skills into comic art that just weren't really as common at the time. So he was a pretty revolutionary artist when he came along.
absolutely.
It's pretty fun talking about the shape language earlier, Shawn and Daya. It's actually really fun doing this. It's forcing me to think about shapes a whole lot more than normal. I think hopefully folks watching are following along as well, because I think this is pretty beneficial.
Let's see how it's coming along, Eric, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Let's see Eric's.
Oh, one second. That's my theme music, in case anyone's wondering.
Whenever you enter this show,
what you don't see is the smoke machines and lasers. Yeah, just playing around with these shapes, I think
that's awesome.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it looks great. It's good seeing you do like more graphic kind of hard shapes. I know I really enjoy it. What I did with mine is definitely more hard edged and graphic than I would normally do.
I love what both you guys did. That looks great.
You guys want to see what I did?
Yes.
Yeah, let's see, Jay.
Let's see if it. Whee!
That's impressive.
Nice. And that's available on essentialsequential.com.
That's a commission, right?
That's for you, Eric.
Okay, great. Well, you're coming to Dallas. I hope I can get that from you.
We have a
all right.
Sorry, we have a super chat from Lance. Lance DeBoy for $20, and thank you so much, Lance. He says these guest artist streams have been terrific. Jim of Food's stream was a breath of fresh air. It gave me a new and relaxing way to practice and learn. Thanks a ton, Dave.
Awesome.
And by the way, I follow Lance on Instagram, and he's been posting drawings that he's been doing since the Jim of Food stream, and I think it's really been a great thing for his artwork. It's really, it's nice to see him just kind of loosen up and try some of that stuff. I think it's really working. So thank you so much.
There is another one as well from Sprawl for $5. Shawn, do you always use blue pencil for the rough-ins? I'm guessing it works best for Lightbox.
No, I don't always use blue pencil. So the Lightbox, this is a printout from Photoshop. I used blue pencil here. I get in moods where I want to use blue pencil. I like for my thumbnails to use very, for lack of a better word, creamy, buttery drawing tools like soft leads, and blue pencil being a color pencil is very creamy. And if I'm not using that, I have a black wing if I'm going to use regular graphite. But I'd say probably most of the time I use blue pencil, but sometimes I'm just like, I'm going to do a page of like these thumbnail pages. I have tons of these. I'd say 80, like if I do 10 of them, 8 of them are blue pencil and 2 are graphite. It just, sometimes I just get in a mood. I don't like to use, aside from inking, in the preliminary phases, I like to play around a little more. When I'm getting to the finals is when I get to my more traditional tools. So for this Batman, the one thing I do, but once I lightbox it, before I ink it, I take a kneaded eraser and I just kind of lift to get as much graphite off of the page as possible. And this is something, Dave, you asked me about in OAX.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So this will prevent me from having to do a erasing too much at the end. I mean, what's left is a ghost image of the pencil. Everything's there. It's just very light. So erasing it is really easy. If I had a big buildup of graphite after I ink it, I'd have to really go at the page with the eraser, which, with the erasers I use and the ink I use, I feel like I'm using the best stuff I can that lifts minimally, but it still lifts some. And I also learned that if I pencil with a blue pencil, because it's got that wax in it, it can resist ink if it's too much buildup of the pencil. So doing this removes it as well.
I definitely have learned that. I used blue pencil on a couple of pages, and that was the end for me. It was,
I used to pencil with that a lot, but yeah, I like graphite.
Esteban sends a super chat from Costa Rica. Dave, you changed my life and give me a goal to pursue art, I think, in my 38 years. Want to ask, how do you decide which to use black in the black part of the costume? Because other artists just do black. I kind of don't understand that question. He is Costa Rican, so.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you very much, first of all. So I'm going to answer that question 2 ways because I'm not quite sure what you mean. The first way to take that is you can just go very graphic with the black and just completely darken it out. So like this area here can just be black. And that would be, the dark part of his mask. Or you can go the way that I went, which is, I think, a little more common. And so I've got heavier shadows here than I would put around it. So here, this is my intent. I don't know how well I pulled it off, but the intent is that the shadows on this part are just a little heavier than they are just on his face or on his hood. Like here, I've got a dark piece here, and so it's a thicker shadow than what I have here. If I was painting this, I would have to give this a little bit more thought, but because I'm just drawing this, I can kind of fudge it just a little bit, which is what I did there. But that is the intent. And I will say that's something I fought with for a long time, trying to come to terms with, I'm trying to learn how to light a character. And now here I am having to try and figure out how to light a dark part and a light part of the same problem for a while.
Sorry. The dog saw some, saw some food. Todd Beat says, Shawn, your recent Lone Wolf and Cub commission strayed from your usual deep saturation, vibrant colors. My question is, how do you balance your personal taste with your audience's reaction to your work?
It's a good question. That piece I wrestled with because I intended to bring it to my full like psychedelic saturated black light palette. And that I got to it like I laid in my values and then I laid in some initial washes. And I was actually in my hotel room at OAX showing Jim and a friend of ours, Ali, the piece, and they were like, "It's finished, dude," because there was something about the soft palette I used and the washes that felt very traditional Japanese. And so I was like, "Ah, that's a good point, but I just don't feel right leaving it like this or doing just a little more work on it." And so I heard Jim and I was like, okay, so that made me think about it. And then Jim, um, off to the side, texted it to an artist friend we know, Mike Huddleston. And Mike was like, it's done. And I really like hold Mike's opinion in very high regard. He's such an art brain, like one of the biggest art brains I've ever met. And so I was like, okay. So then I just started looking at some hokusai paintings and I was like, I see what they're saying because they were saying I captured because it was winter in a Japanese forest, and they were saying I captured like a mood. Like Mike said, it was like a poetry, and I was like, all right, okay. So I did get a little. I was like, I'm gonna leave it. This is my call. I'm gonna leave it, and I will never like if my art gut tells me to do something, I'm not going to like try to please someone else. I'm going to listen to that. So I was like, all right, this is it. I'm just going to see how because the guy who is getting it, he's gotten commissions from me before, and I don't know what it is about him, but every time he gets a commission from me, they're like my best ones. And I was like, I'm just going to see how he reacts. And everyone that saw it was just like, and I asked Stelfreeze the next morning too, and he was like, it's done. And he had one little idea. Like, he's like, throw a little magenta right here. And so I did that, and he loved it. So to answer your question, I try not to like I was saying earlier, I've really stopped trying to fit in with people's expectations of what a book is or what I should be doing. And I'm just trying to listen to my art voice. And I was fully ready to say, hey, if you don't like it, I can do another one for you or give you your money back. But he loved it, and I'd say it's probably one of my most popular commissions I've ever done.
Well, I will say that it is part of drawing professionally. Is there are times when people won't like something and you need to be prepared for it. And fortunately, I saw the picture. There's no way that was going to happen. But when that does happen, you need to be willing to suck it up and redo it, give people's money back, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
just it's part of the business. It happens to everyone.
Yeah,
is.
yeah. I think that's like a typical after the con dinner conversation.
Yeah.
Have you ever had to refund someone for a commission, or like I've had that conversation with so many people.
What happens to every artist, right? If some guy didn't want an Arthur Adams commission that we
Yeah, like that baffles me.
Lucifer is saying, so you typically ink with brushes instead of pens. What sort of ink, and does it run when colored?
And what a great
All right.
question. And this is something that I've been kind of trying to get this in here for just a minute. Is I wanted to talk about the ink that we're using right now.
Absolutely. So I use this FW ink. I actually make a concoction. This ink is really thick. It dries matte, not glossy, and it's extremely opaque.
Really good.
It will not run through a nib, so don't try to use this in a nib, but it will run through a brush beautifully. But I keep my ink in a little ink well here, and as I'm working, it gets thicker and thicker. So I realized it was thickening up too fast. So the same company makes an ink for nibs called Cali, like in calligraphy. So it's basically just a slightly thinner version of the FW, and so I do a half and half. And so when I first make a batch, it's a little thin for my liking, but very quickly it hits that perfect spot and it kind of stays there for a long time.
Do you color over it, or you have to put the
Yeah,
color?
yeah. So these are totally waterproof acrylic based inks. So every painting I've done, I do the line work with this and I paint right on top of it. No problem. It doesn't bleed. It doesn't move.
Well, it basically is paint, really.
David and I airbrush some of that stuff too. That stuff's great.
It is.
Yeah.
That was pretty amazing to me. And the inks, especially in person, just stand out on the page. They have so much body to them compared to like the traditional ink, which can look a little washed out and blotchy.
Yeah. This stuff looks like a block print when it's laid down.
And I think that alone saved me a lot of time. Every time I do a cover, I have to bring it into Photoshop, and then I do levels on it to get rid of, the artifacts, and then to darken up the ink. And I find I end up closing up some detail and losing some things. When you do a level, that tends to happen. And so
totally.
I'd like to
So
use this.
use levels, not curves, Dave?
I don't know how to use curves, and I know people do, but it's like a mad science to me, curves. I don't understand.
I had someone teach me, and this is how he put it to me. When you're using levels, you're using a sledgehammer. When you're using curves, you're using a scalpel. And when he said that, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I use a lot of dry brush. So I don't want to lose the grain of the marks. So when I use levels, I would start to lose a lot of that. But when I use curves, I didn't.
Well, I need to figure it out because I don't really use dry brush, but it does happen just naturally.
Sure.
It kind of, and that stuff all just gets closed up or just gets blown out. I just lose it to the light. And it's a shame, I never like my leveled art as much as the original. So
I'd be happy to kind of show you the curves whenever. It doesn't take that much longer. And the way I do it, I do two layers. I do one layer where I separate my blacks and whites as much as I can without losing anything. And then I do another layer where I push my grays towards the white. And it seems to keep my dry brush look while getting rid of like whatever noise I don't want anymore.
All right. Well, I'll definitely have to give that a try. That sounds like it would be a big help. Do you have inking exercises that you do to tighten up, or that you would recommend for somebody to tighten up and get better?
Yeah. I did a lot of this in school. Mark Schultz showed me a lot of this stuff. So he said, let me try to get my camera down on it, see if I can get closer. He would have me draw circles and say, try to keep the line weight consistent. So I draw circles, lots of them, and try to not have it get because typically when you first start using a brush and you're pulling around, it gets thicker as you go around, and then it lets up as you come back around. But he was like, try to maintain consistency with your brush. So that taught me a lot. Then the other thing I would do is, and this taught me, this is probably the most important exercise I ever did. I used to do this all the time. I do these S curls. So I start off really with just the tip of the brush and work my way around laying into the brush, and then really lay into it, come back around and let up. And this teaches you all about pressure.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So that those really helped me. And when I first started inking, I was so influenced by the Gaijin guys and that slick look they had. I mean, feathering, just the act of feathering was always something that taught me about pressure. And I can't even do it anymore. It's been so long. But it was like, it would always get me when I'd see people feathering and they didn't meet at the bottom. It was like the illusion of the fade never worked.
Oh, I know.
So I got really anal about it.
I've worked with inkers. That's a problem, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah. And I see a lot of inkers, like, they'll feather, and it's like, they'll do this where they're like, you'll feather, and the feathers don't meet at the bottom. So there's like that illusion of fading out doesn't work. But like when Carl Story or Pearson or Brian would do this, it was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So those are the exercises I would do frequently. And I would always, when filling in blacks, before I would fill in a black, I would just try to play in there. And And then also the next thing I did was I started figure drawing with the brush. Like I'd go to figure model session with that brush you were holding, Dave, that that where like the this areas holds all the ink and it's a synthetic tip.
Okay, yes, yeah.
So those I would just go draw with it. I'd do sketch with them, and it though doing that taught me that the brush is, like, to me, my favorite drawing tool, and that's what it is to me. It's and so yeah, I think those exercises are great, really helpful. And Dave, while we're here, you were asking about me pulling a line. So like, here's a line I'm going to pull
Mm-hmm.
right here. So I'll measure it like this, and then I'll come back and I'll lay down and go and just
All in
pull.
one shot.
Yeah. And that one's a little wet. So the other thing, what I love about dry brush is when it gets to that, like that, I had freshly dipped it there. So I'm going to pull some ink off. When it's dry, the paper, because I use a rough paper, grabs the brush and steadies it really well. Like, I spent so many years working on stick paper, doing stick and fork, and that was like working on glass. But when you work on a rough paper, it just grabs the brush and you pull.
It's
And it
perfect.
works.
Yeah, and you're working along the natural kind of movement of your hand too, which
Yes.
But it looked to me like you're using your whole arm. That wasn't really a wrist movement. That was
No,
more.
it's not at all. When I pull those long lines, it's all arm. It's no wrist. Like I hold the brush differently. When I'm using my wrist, I hold it like this. And then when I'm gonna pull a line, I switch to this. So like here I'll do like this is all wrist line work here. Boom, boom. And then I'll switch my grip and I'll come up into here, measure my line, and go.
Wow.
And if I want to thicken it up, I'll go over it again.
That's amazing. I'm just trying it right now on my picture, and because I only ever work just with my wrist. I don't have the confidence with the arm, so just trying to kind of okay. I'm going so light because I'm afraid to do it.
That's all. But what type of paper are you using, Dave?
I'm using Strathmore 200 series, and this is Bristol. It's smooth, and we
Yeah,
talked about
that's
you're
part of
using.
what. If I was using smooth, I would that line would be pretty shaky. I think the toothy paper really helps steady it a lot.
We talked about that too, and I just completely forgot. When we were planning for this, I would have gotten the right paper, and the right paper that you're using is the vellum. Is that right?
Yes, yes. So I use the Strathmore 500 vellum. It's the roughest Bristol board I found on the market.
Yeah, I
And
found
like,
a lot of inkers don't like using it. Inkers that use a nib don't like it, but
yeah, I mean, I could see that.
I like it better for penciling, and I don't use a nib, so I need to just make that switch.
Yeah, I don't use a nib either. Although I will, Shawn uses this paper and he uses a ton of nib. And Shawn taught me, in fact, when we get to the other version of this, Shawn taught me a technique where when he's working, he'll literally lift the paper and it's not catching. That's the problem with the rough surfaces. If you do it on a hard surface and you do that, it'll catch and tear the paper. But if you lift it up, you can pretty much do anything you want because the paper has a bounce to it. And that's what
See, if
Shawn
I would have
does.
known that, I would have said, "Hey, just try that."
We should do an ink along that everyone can experiment with different styles.
I'm down.
We've
There's
got
only one style, Jason. That's what we're doing right here.
well, you can have your own style.
Everything else unacceptable.
There is another super chat which we have to mention. Greg said he rewatched the heads and eyes tutorial a lot, but still having so much problems placing the eyes. Any chance you can give some tips?
Okay, let me show you this really quickly.
I want to see this too.
Okay, so I've got my face, and here's my eye line. This would be my brow line, basically. And I could just put an eye here and an eye here, and that's basically where they go. Your nose is going to be just about here, just about like that. And that can make it really difficult. Now, my eyes are not too bad. See, I want to make sure that my eye lines up here and this one lines up with the other side of the nose. They do pretty well. But it can be difficult to get that lined up if you draw the face at more of an angle. And so I'm going to put my nose all the way over here. Where to get this eye, where to get the nose, all that stuff kind of lined up. And now I am going to say, Greg, that a good portion of this, you really just have to do observational drawing. And that makes a huge difference. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm already kind of doing it here because my eyes are a little harder for me to place, so I'm already kind of cheating, but I'm going to draw a socket. I'm assuming you've already tried this because I had this one in the video. So I'm doing a socket, but then if I draw a ball in there, I don't know that a ball really helps from this angle too much, but from this angle, it really does. I'm just going to draw my ball in there, lining up with my nose. Here's my socket. And now when I put my eyelid on, it's rounding around a ball. So I'm not just drawing it kind of, and there's the edge of my ball there. And so it gives me something to kind of work with. If you're really kind of feeling like you're struggling getting that eye to look like it's sitting well in there, I'd recommend working with a bit of a ball shape. Let me draw my eye on here. It doesn't work as well from the front. And from the front, generally people don't struggle with eyes quite as much. So I don't know that it's something you want to do from more of a frontal angle, but when you start to get to the side and it gets a little more difficult, using a bottle or a bottle, I don't know where that came from, using a ball can really be a big help. So I hope that helps, Greg. I'd like to go, into a bunch of detail, but we're inking Wolverine and Batman, so I do hope that helps. So.
So that worked when you inked that way there. The long, flowy, what Shawn showed you. That looked great.
Thank you. I felt like it worked pretty well. Yeah. It was so foreign. I've never, I don't think in my whole career, I don't think I've tried to use my entire arm to throw a line. Rather, like right now, this one, I'm just going to throw with my wrist, and I'm more comfortable that way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I lived in that space for a long time, and it took me a really long time to get comfortable with it. I remember like I would just start switching up my grip, and I'd go for. I also did start using rulers with a brush before I let go of the rulers, and that kind of helped, I think, too.
So you're getting some spaces in there too. It's not just fully filled in, like under his chin there. How are you getting that working?
This?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good question. In fact, I wanted to talk about that. So I have areas where two black shapes will meet, and one form, like a jaw, like this jaw, would catch some light on the underside, bouncing off of the cape or the muscles in the neck. So I developed this technique where I'll show you right here how I do it. So I basically just lay down the brush, and it makes these little white triangles. And then I fill in around them. And it just, like, everything I'm doing is a very graphic way of painting. Like, I'm trying to communicate a world of value with pure black in a very graphic way. Like, I'm not using soft fades. I'm using techniques that are totally graphic. So those little white triangles, when I blacken around them, just allow a little bit of light to creep in. But,
it's amazing because I can imagine artists going through who knows what process trying to get that to work, like using a little bit of whiteout and trying so many different things to try to get.
Right. I mean, I've been down that road too.
Yeah.
But Eric was asking me that same question. He was watching me do it. He's like, "What are you doing?" And like, I was like, I felt like I was on trial. I was like, well, the theory is this. If it's not working, please tell me. But another thing I'll do is like let's say in this forehead area, I don't want to just make it flat black. Again, I'm thinking like if this were a painting, I'd have a little bit of light creep in there. So how do I do that with ink? So I'll do these like lines with my brush that fan outwards as I go. And I'm making them bigger so they're easier to see on camera, but I generally would do these smaller. And then I would block out that. So I've got a very much a rectangular shape with fans. And now because they're so big, I'm going to come in on this side and kind of make them fatter even so I can blend it better.
There's a super chat, by the way, while we're waiting there for Johnny D. I think a lot of artists should also study traditional animation books. It really gives insight on how to exaggerate and better portray movement.
Sure.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that. I know for me, I'm a very big fan of. I want to say Bill Keane. It's not Bill Keane. Bill Keane did Family Circus.
Glenn Keane.
Thank you. Yes, Glenn Keane at Disney, and I've looked at and copied his stuff quite a bit over the years.
Yeah.
And I know J. Scott Campbell is very influenced by My Little Mermaid, My Little Pony, whatever, Little Mermaid. And you can see in some of his early work, you can see some of those faces kind of creeping in there, and
definitely.
Yeah, he's very influential, and that's just one artist. I also really like animation for hands. There are great just sheets for hand drawing with 30, 40 hands from different angles, drawn in different styles, and they're so good for reference.
Totally.
Kira Waramono asked, wish I was in Super Chat so I could ask about line quality. Definitely go ahead and ask. If we see it, we'll read it out. So this is definitely the stream to ask for sure.
Well, I think that was the ask then. There you go.
Yeah.
You went?
So what was the question?
He just said, I wish I could ask about line quality. So I just said, anything specific. Yeah. Because definitely what Shawn's been showing is will definitely improve your line quality for sure. It's already helping here. So
yeah. So let me finish up this. So this area here. So once I've got the lines in and I've blocked it off, then what I'll do is I'll get my brush really dry and I'll just soften the edges with a drier brush on both sides so that shape starts to disappear. And if there's too much white, I'll add a little bit of dry brush in it too. So now when I fill in the black around it, that's an area where a little bit of light crept into the forehead. And when it's all done, you'll be able to understand it probably even better.
And I mean, that would be impossible to replicate. But now you guys can because you have seen it done. There you go.
Yeah.
There's a few questions. Well, the first one was, hey, Shawn, what was your favorite cartoon as a kid?
This is a good question because the whole reason I'm here doing this is in the 70s, I discovered a cartoon called Spider-Man. And it wasn't Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. That was the 80s, and I love that too. But it was the original Spider-Man with that theme song. And I had never seen a comic book. I didn't know who this Spider-Man guy was, but I would wake up. I would set an alarm for 6 a.m. on Saturday mornings as a little kid. The whole house would be asleep. I would grab a box of cereal, a bowl of milk, and just plop in front of the TV. And that was just pure magic to me. And every week, like seeing a different bad guy, like I looked forward to seeing who the bad guy was and learning about that bad guy. That cartoon changed my life.
For me, it was Spider-Man on not Sesame Street. It was Electric Company.
Electric Company, yeah. Yeah, I remember that too. But that, and then I got, as I got older and like Thundercats came out, that just
Oh man, that was my jam.
yeah. I mean that was animation on a whole nother level for my little mind.
Yeah. Well, I remember the He-Man toys came out and they were so nothing
best
like that.
toys ever.
Yeah. I just talked to somebody that has every He-Man toy that he had when he was a kid. I was so jealous.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Does his mom care that it's taking up her whole house?
He's a pretty successful guy.
Wow,
you know? He's he's actually got them all set up. He's got an X-Men setup that's like 10 feet long with is remarkable. There's like foam and spray paint, and I don't know if I'm making it sound that great, but it really is amazing.
There is another super chat from Ink in My Coffee for $10 saying, Dave, can't wait for your Marvel book, and thanks for your incredible instructional content. Are you officially out on Fan Expo in June?
I am not at Fan Expo this year, unfortunately. No, it's been actually a couple years, so I need to get back there. And it just the last couple of years, it just scheduling wise, it just hasn't worked out. So unfortunately, I won't be there.
In Toronto?
In Toronto, right?
Because I think we looked at that as a maybe, no?
Did we?
Yeah, I think there's a possibility. I'll take a look at the schedule again, but
okay, yeah. Well, I mean,
there might be.
It's one of my favorites, so to miss it, has not been fun. So yeah, well, you know what, maybe, and hopefully I will see you there if I can manage to go.
We will be in Dallas. Well, actually, the next show Dave's at is at C2E2, right? And then I think Dallas after that, and Eric will be there as well.
Yeah, great.
And so it really seems like you're mostly doing dry brushing at this point.
Yeah, I was just about to say I'm finally like warmed up, like the nervousness of being on cameras subsiding and getting comfortable. And what I like about dry brush is when I'm in my zone, it's like I'm playing more. I'm not just making my shape flat. I'm letting the brush do its thing and kind of dancing with it.
You're drowning out there, Shawn.
I'm drowning out again.
That's a little better.
Yeah, it's really strange. Every once in a while, it's not often, but it's happened a couple of times where it just kind of starts sounding like
Charlie Brown's teacher.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, so I get into the zone, and now it's like
yep, it's there again.
Let me look at my connection.
In the meantime, there's a super chat for $10. I got off today with a long weekend and get to draw along instead of working. Thanks for the stream today. It's helping extend beyond naturalism since adjusting did your environment comps change also? Punctuation is what I think I need a little more of.
Thanks for the stream today. It's helping extend beyond naturalism. Since adjusting to your environment. Oh, okay. I think I know what you're saying. Okay. Now for me, I can't answer this well because I've always been a comic artist. It's really all I've ever done. So I don't really have experience being any other kind of artist. So I could say, hey, I've changed really from this to this. This is the kind of art I always wanted to do. And, I always wanted to be an image comics artist. That was, the minute I saw that stuff, I thought this is it. I never aspired to more than that. So I can't answer that. If that was a question, I can't answer that as well as I would like. I do apologize. And thank you so much for the super chat. I see what you mean with just being much more graphic with the shapes too, because I'm still kind of working through all my form stuff. I'm almost done to get to the point where I can start to try and do some of what you're doing. For me, I can't. I can't do what you're doing until I have everything kind of in, and then I can. The way that you're really inking tightly and cleanly there, and establishing like on his forehead there that shape, and with some of it not in, is very foreign for me. I just can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all just kind of develop our ways of working that make no sense to anyone.
So I pulled a line with my arm, and I completely missed my
great.
pencil line. Totally missed it, but it's actually it's a pretty clean. I think that might be the cleanest line I've ever pulled in my
Yeah,
life.
that's great. That's
Amazing.
great. And yeah, so the more you do it, you'll be able to like land on your pencil more. But
Yeah.
also, it's not like sometimes I'll stray from the pencil accidentally too, and it's like, all right, that's just the line now, and that's okay.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's a happy little line.
That's what I said.
A happy accident. There was a super chat regarding, let's see, Damie King saying, I just bought 2 Justice League books from 2011. It mentioned Jim Lee and David Finch, but didn't credit you to which issues. How much did you add?
I did an ad. It was a double-page spread for Justice League of America, which is a book we were launching with Jeff Johns at the time. So I actually really didn't do much at all. I don't even know why they really credited me for that book, because it effectively amounted to an ad, but I was in there, so there you go.
Ink My Coffee, he said he meant Fan Expo Dallas. So yes, we will all.
Shawn, are you going to Dallas?
No, I'm not doing any shows until Heroes, which is in June.
No, we're doing something kind of neat in Dallas. We're doing a VIP dinner with some of the guys on Friday night, Dave included, and the other ES guys. I think they'll put them up for sale next week sometime. So if you like
What
to have
guys
dinner
are
with
doing
us,
the dinner?
come check it out.
What other artists other than Dave are doing the dinner?
Dave, Cully, Joyce, Jeff Loeb, Arthur Adams.
Nice.
I think Klaus is going too, right?
Klaus, yeah, Klaus will be there. So Klaus Jensen. There's 6 different creators, and there'll be, I think there's 30 spots for fans to come and have dinner with us. And you get some art and some cool stuff. So
Yes. So yeah, it's not just putting up with our stories that we told 300 million times to each other. You also get some art.
You get some art, some prints, some signatures.
And really, the later the night goes, the more honest people get.
Well, it's a cash bar, so everyone's going to behave themselves.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Kira is saying, I'm a newer artist, 16 years old. Now I've been drawing since I'm 10. I'd say my anatomy is all right, but I'm lacking in more simple/complicated areas like inconsistent line quality and backgrounds. Any quick tips?
Well, inconsistent line quality, just earlier on, if you've been watching this whole time, Shawn had some really, really great techniques for working on that. And I'd really suggest you, if you haven't seen that, maybe when this is done, go back and take a look. I think that'll really, really help you out. Now, backgrounds are a whole other thing. I'm going to say you need to learn perspective. You need to learn proper perspective. And without it, your backgrounds are just not really going to work well. But aside from that, I do have one thing that I really want to point out. I think I've said this before in a few videos, but it's important, and I'm seeing it often. And that is, here's my pencil. Okay. So I'm going to draw a window. And whether you use a ruler for this or not, I see windows that basically look like that very, very often. More often than not, really. And it looks fake. I mean, honestly, and it's fine, it's a window. But the reason it looks fake is these are just lines. And so when you're working on your backgrounds, you really want to think in terms of what I'm drawing here now. I'm effectively drawing a rectangle like this. And all I have to do to get that is just fill that space in, fill that in here, fill that in here. I'm going to fill this, connect that right there. And here's my closer wall. I'm going to draw my sill. Again, my sill needs to have some dimension to it. And I can do the same thing here, give this just a little bit of dimension. And just doing that makes such a big difference. It's an essential thing. That doesn't even include putting in shadows, and you can put extra little detail and do different things, but just doing that for your backgrounds, I don't know that that's really the question you were asking, but I just want to point out that I'm seeing that quite a bit, and it's something very, very important that if you're not doing, you really want to look at starting to do. I'm trying to dry brush, but it's so hard for me to get it dry. But then
that's the paper. That's the paper.
Here we go.
But I mean, you can see I'm spending a lot of time pulling ink off of my brush. Like another thing I do, let me show you what I do, is here's my ink well. So when I dip it, the next thing I do, I just dip the tip in. I touch my paper towel and pull excess ink off of it.
Okay.
And then I twirl it on the board to get my point back and pull more ink off of it. So, and now it's still a bit wet for me. So I'll go into an area that's going to be black and I'll test it. I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of good. I can get some good dry brush out of it right now. So that's when I'll do like, I know I can go in and do like these parallel line marks that are really dry and scratchy.
So you're not just jumping into that line and then hoping that it works. It's
No, I honestly rarely do that. I usually will find an area that's safe where if it is a bit wet and goes pure black, I'm okay. And that's why you see areas that are going to be filled in black that aren't filled in yet, because I know like if I start to make a mark, it's too wet, I'll just go into that area and dry it out by filling it in.
That makes a lot of sense. So I think that really helps to have a drawing that's more realized when you're inking too.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's something I can be very lazy with. It's a problem. It doesn't help my art. It doesn't make it better. It just makes it quicker. But there's a sacrifice.
And actually, one thing I want to talk about, this is my theory, and this explains a little bit of like the Kevin Nolan stuff in my ink. So on this side of the face, I'm having that intense reflective light hit it. So my theory is when the intense reflective light hits it, it should be high contrast, hard edge black shapes, hard edge white shapes. Whereas the softer, more natural light is where I'll fade things out and introduce more grays so that you can feel there's like the light is different on either side of the face. And that's something I took from looking at Kevin Nolan a lot.
All the years I've looked at Kevin Nolan, I have never picked up on that. That is really interesting.
But I think that also comes from not just Kevin Nolan, but it was through Kevin Nolan I discovered like my favorite comics, the EC comics, and Jack Davis and Wally Wood and those guys, and Al Williamson I would look at a lot because he did a lot of that too, where the hard reflective the reflective light was this hard edged high contrast area, and the natural light had a lot of rendering and grays and stuff, and Frazetta too.
This is a concept that I'm completely unaware of.
I could be completely off base.
Yeah,
but that was my theory.
No, I don't think you are at all. But you know what? People don't talk about this stuff enough, and so many times, really important concepts like that. It just takes a lot of intuition by an artist. If you don't tell anybody, nobody else. Well, I certainly didn't know. Know now.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know that I vocalized that before. It was something through studying I discovered and put to practice, and just assumed everyone was like, I I was like, okay, I'm late to the party on this.
You know what? Maybe you are, and I'm just completely not even there. I don't know. I need to start asking around. I bet you everybody knows this now. I really, you know what? I got to be honest. I don't think that people do. I don't think that that's common knowledge.
All
I've
right,
never
so
heard that expressed, and thinking about it, you were 100% right. Like I can see it right now in my head.
yeah, that's the thing is when you think about it, you're like, oh my god, like if you think about like Wally Wood's Spirit in Space, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
lighting.
We do have a super chat from Jim asking, Shawn, broad question. Do you have any tips / general rules for pushing line weights further? I love cartoony styles that achieve as much as possible with flowing line weights and minimal rendering. Any suggestions for who to study?
Dude, great question. Carl Barks line work, Walt Kelly's line work. I mean, if you want to talk about simplicity with a brush where like I mean, I don't work this way anymore. My line weights are very dead now. Like I don't mean dead in a negative sense, but they're just very there's no variation. But when you look at like Walt Kelly and you see these beautiful lines with this beautiful variation to it, or Jeff Smith too. Like these type of lines, they're great. And what's great about that is like let's say you have a face. Let me just get a little face in here. Okay. So you got a little face. So if the light is coming down from this angle, it just tells you like, okay, as I tuck away from the light, I lay into my brush more. Now I got to get more wet line work for this because this is not good for dry. And so like the cheek, you'll lay into it, and the chin lay into it. And I'm exaggerating it a lot so you can see it on camera. But the idea being that the thinner lines are where the light hits it, and the thicker part of the line is where it fades into shadow. And that I would look at. And Shane Glines is a beautiful inker. I know we all know his great design work, but I have a comic. What was the Ren and Stimpy comic line called? I'll have to dig it up in a second. But he inked John Kricfalusi on this comic. It was a big Dark Horse, like bigger than magazine size. In fact, give me 1 second. I can pull it out.
Some people are asking for a Eric Grove update.
Yeah. What time is it? 9:20. We haven't seen Eric for an hour.
Oh my god.
Get in there. Slowly.
This.
Well, that means you have to. Oh wait. Okay. Before you show it, let's.
Yeah.
So this Spumco, that's what. Yeah. So it was called Spumco comic book. I have 3 of these, but if you look at Shane Glines' brushwork, it is exquisite. Those thick and thin lines, that really animated look. So, yeah, I would say those are all good names. But let's look at Eric's thing now.
Nice.
Nice and graphic.
Trying to get them as angular as possible without looking.
So are you going to try and put in some of the dry brush at some point? Are you going to give that
Sure.
I've been trying, not the most successfully, and I am so upset with myself because I knew that Shawn uses vellum, and I just forgot. And
what's funny is I was looking at my Bristol board today, and I pulled smooth. I was like, I bet you smooth will go well tonight.
Yeah.
I totally overshot that one.
I have a good story that relates to what you guys are talking about right now. The reason I started dry brushing was I was like I said, I worked on very slick paper, and I was very controlled and very clean and like really slick, like trying to be the Gaijin guys. And I got very, very controlled at it, to the point where I felt like I was losing life in the work. It was, I mean, I had a friend say it almost looks vector, and I was like, oh, I don't want that. And I got this Deadpool short story, and I had got a new bottle of ink. I just wanted to try, and Something happened where the very first mark I made on, it was like a headshot of Deadpool, the line broke up. And I got like I went fast and I got some of those marks and I loved them. And I spent the entire short story trying to understand why sometimes I would hit that mark and sometimes it wouldn't work. And I realized, okay, the ink is thick, so that's a big part of it. And then I realized I need to go to a rougher paper. And once I did that and I combined the two, I was like, oh, now I'm hitting it every time. And it just opened up a whole world of life to my work. Because, I mean, I am very controlled, and it's just my nature to draw this way, very graphic, very controlled fashion. But I needed something that I couldn't control to give some more life to my work. And it
I,
was that dry brush.
I think, yeah, it is a great juxtaposition with something that's so graphic, and you have such a naturally precise hand when you're working. It works really, really well with it.
I was
Thank
speaking
you.
to Dave Johnson at a convention one time. He was inking Wonder Woman's hair, and it was dry brush. And what he does is I don't know if he still does it. That was quite a while ago. The Pigma Micron brushes. He waits and he lets them get really really dry, and he saves those. And then he pulls those out and dry brushes with them because there's not much ink in them. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
So
I know
he
a
had a
few
whole set
artists that
of old pigment.
Yeah, I know artists that keep their dead brushes aside just for that. I mean, Dave is such a brilliant artist. I mean,
Oh yeah.
he's got such a wealth of knowledge of techniques. It's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. He really does. I've gone to him for advice a few times.
Yeah,
And,
he's another art brain.
yeah. Well, and his design sense is so great.
Oh my God, the best.
So it's 9:27 now. I don't know how long it's going to take to try out something with some of the calligraphy pens, but when you're ready, I think it'd be a lot of fun to give
Yeah,
that
I
a
mean,
try.
we can dive into it. I can always do that later. This is going to be a big guessing game for me. So let's see how this goes. And this is me, like everything I've been doing is about care and precision, and this is me doing the opposite because I can't control this tool at all. In my head I have ideas of grandeur of how
All
this
right.
will go. We'll see how it goes. So like I'm not even going to worry about like line quality because I don't even know if I can get it out of this pen, but
If this is a total fail, we'll lie and be nice.
I'll learn
I
something from it. It won't be a total fail, but
No, I
I'll
don't think
learn.
it will anyway. I think it's going to turn out great. You knew it was going to come out that heavy when you did that, right? And I'm not saying
Yeah,
that, just saying it's take a lot of guts. I'd be so afraid to do that with a nib.
Yeah, I mean that's that. What I'm trying to do is go into my black areas and lean into the pen to get some like really chunky marks,
Yep.
and then I'm gonna soften it with like what I'm gonna do is I'll try to soften the edge here with marks like that. And I know this pen is gonna give me like not the faintest of line work, so that's what the other pen will hopefully do for me. It'll give me layers of it. I mean, I'm thinking of like Topi and stuff like that. So
I
we'll
wonder,
see.
did Topi use the kind of pens you're using right now?
I don't think so. No, but that's what my other pen I'm gonna try to pull with. Like I mean, this is just a giant experiment at this point.
Yeah.
But I'm trying not to have too many solid blacks.
Alex Hernandez asks, have the Marvel art books orders shipped yet? No, they're actually being printed right now, though. So that's coming right along.
So we'll see. Like, I don't know what this mark is going to be, but we'll see.
That looks great. I
Okay.
want to say, don't try this at home.
Yeah.
It
Looks
looks
good.
amazing, though.
Are you serious? I don't know. I don't know what's happening.
At this point now, I've totally stopped working on my picture. I'm just watching.
I'm riding the dragon right now.
Do you know what the name of that calligraphy pen is?
Yeah, it's called a parallel pen by Pilot.
All right.
And they have different sizes. This is a size 2.4. It's not the smallest, but the next one up. The smallest is like a 1.8, I think. And there's bigger ones too. So like, what I like about these pens is this sort of mark making is really spontaneous and fun.
Really is, yeah. And controlled for as spontaneous it is. It actually, I don't know if that's just because it's you using it and you are naturally very, you have a lot of control over the pens, certainly more than I do.
I don't know. I'm in the Wild West right now.
Yeah.
So then my idea is, let's see if this works.
Tigerman Waterworks says Ashley Wood uses a parallel pen.
Yeah, exactly. Ashley Wood, Jim Mahfood, Bill Sienkiewicz, Jason Shawn Alexander, a lot of those guys.
And
so the opposite look of what I normally have.
Yeah, oh, certainly me too. And good to see Tagamo here. Dan Genovese is here. Henry, I mentioned Henry earlier on. Art9 is here. Sheldon Martin. It's good to see you guys here again. Hopefully everybody's having a good week. I think most of us are going to have a little bit extra time off this week, Easter weekend. So I made the mistake of starting to cook.
I love cooking.
So do I, and I love it. I really do. But now I've got a bunch of stuff I'm cooking for Easter, so it's going to be a busy weekend for me.
What are you going to make?
I'm making a tzatziki sauce, which I already made.
Oh, nice.
It's good stuff. And tahini, I have not made that yet. I want to make. I keep saying falafel, and my wife keeps laughing at me. It's falafel, but I'm going to make some
falafel.
of those. Got everything for it. A few other things, more like appetizer things. So I'm very much into Mediterranean and Middle Eastern food. And
Me too.
In Windsor, actually, we have a pretty large Middle Eastern community. And so there's a lot of like the grocery stores and everything. You can find everything here. So it's great.
Yeah, we've got in the suburbs of Atlanta where I am, we've got a large Persian community and Korean and Latin. So we've got a lot of great food around us.
Yep. It's Art by Martin says, I'm getting hungry now. Yeah, so am I.
Yeah. So now I feel like I'm pulling it together. I think my vision is starting to work. See, it's getting a little taupey like.
It really is, yeah. Yeah, you only need to fill up a certain amount of the picture to start to get a bit of a rhythm and a feel for where you're going with it. So I don't know what this is, but Max Flowers asks, has anyone tried the handwrite Mick ruling pens? Definitely fun experimental dip pens to play around with.
If he's talking about the ruling pens from like the Art of Marvel, like How to Draw Marvel Comics, that's what they used to use to rule out panel borders.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried those a little bit. Those are a wild animal.
Yeah, those are. I've tried it before I ever got into comics. I thought, okay, you have to have this because it was in the book, and I never.
Right. Me too.
So do you feel like this is going about the same speed or quicker or slower?
Oh, much faster.
Okay.
Much faster.
It's a little tough for me to tell because I really was looking down so much while you were inking, trying to get my own picture done. So It's a different experience just sitting and watching. This is great. I get to watch just like all you guys that are watching at home. Just get to chill. Sean's doing all the work right now.
I'm just riding the dragon.
Henry Jeremick asks, will you sometimes thin your inks to do a wash?
When I'm painting, I do that. Yeah, I do. The way I paint is I get my values established first with washes, and then I start to like wash and glaze color on top of it.
Do you
But
find
for my like, go ahead.
do you find that you get too dark sometimes? And if you do, is that recoverable when you're doing washes?
In a painting, no. So I very cautiously, well, yeah, I mean, I think working in black and white so much has me pretty well trained about like where to have my absolute darks.
Mhm.
But I'll build through the process of painting. Like my initial wash, my darks are not fully established in my value painting. I'll glaze color and wash color on top, and then as I go, I'll be like, all right, I need to add more darks into this area, and I'll build it.
We have a comment from the Blissful Wizard who says, "What up, Sean? I was a student of yours at the Art Institute." And I think we might have lost your sound.
No, stop.
There we go. Sound's working.
You hear things I'm saying SRLL when I'm not when I do it. You guys hear me?
Eldaria TCG asks, are any of you inspired by old ink masters like Franklin Booth, Bernie Wrightson, Frankenstein type art? What are your opinions on those styles?
I mean, that's like God level.
Yeah.
It is. And this is the problem. Yes, I love it. I think it's incredible. I'm influenced, but to be honest, it is so far above my ability with a brush or anything really that I feel like I'd be lying to say that my inking is influenced by that at all. I've never gotten to that level.
Yeah, I agree. I feel the same way. That's a level that's crazy to me.
Frazetta was so young when he was doing some of that stuff too. Some of his early comics covers with just
Yeah.
unbelievable feathering.
Yes. Yes.
And Russ Six has a question. He says, Sean, does the SCAD campus in Atlanta work closely with the Savannah campus, or are they independent?
I mean, it's the same institution. When I was there, we didn't get along with Savannah so well. There's a lot behind that, but basically, when I started in the department, me and my friend Pat, who built it, we were both working professionally, and we both went to grad school in Savannah, and we had some real issues with the program. Um, the main one being so few of the teachers had any professional experience that the information we were getting seemed to be off, or I couldn't trust it because they'd have a lot of pros come in and give workshops that would kind of contradict the information I was getting, and I trusted the pros. So when we started the program, we were like, look, let's make sure as we add teachers to the department, they're all working professionals so that our students don't have to have that experience. And we did. So our program was very professionally minded, and I think created a lot of tension between the campuses. I mean, it seemed like they were purposefully trying to keep what was going on up in Atlanta a secret at times. But I did go to the Savannah campus. So yeah, I mean, we were basically the same company, and on paper we were the same program. Um, and we did do things together sometimes, but there was some tension there.
Fair enough. Mr. Comic says, sorry. Mr. Comic says, you are a big inspiration, man. Your artwork is chef kiss always. And we have a question from the Gaming Mule who says, Shawn, will you be doing any more work for Marvel Snap? Absolutely love the variants you created for it.
Oh, great. Yeah, actually, I just finished my first contract out, and they just told me that they've got another contract being put together right now. So yeah, I mean, I'll keep working for Snap as long as they'll have me. It's a really, really awesome gig to get.
And that stuff is so popular. I hear about it
I
all the time.
know. I had no idea. Like when they first hired me, the game wasn't even out yet. I was like, I didn't know what to expect. I knew they were paying me really well, and that it was like I got to work on Marvel characters without all the like nonsense of having to deal with Marvel editorial, and it was just a lot more fun. And so I was just having a blast, and then the game came out and just was huge. I was like, whoa, this is a great place to be right now.
Yeah. You never know when you start something out before it comes out how it's going to do, and you always hope for the best. But that turned
Totally.
out to be a massive deal.
It's pretty addictive. I enjoy it.
I've heard
Yeah,
that a
Jay,
lot.
did you get the Mr. Fantastic card today? It seemed like they finally, like, the card that they released was like all my other cards have been hard to get, but this one people are just opening up Snap and it's there waiting for them.
Oh, I'll have to take a look. I'm too cheap. I don't buy that stuff. You
I know, that's what I'm saying. Is it seems to be a lot of people are getting it free.
Sheldon Martin says, my sister gets Snap, but it's not Marvel. So apparently Snap has a lot of different things.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't know that.
Echo says he's going to be at the bathroom, so
He'll be right back. We'll all wait. Don't worry. We'll be here.
All right. So I don't know if the camera is picking up like a lot of the subtlety that I'm enjoying about this. I guess it kind of is.
It is. It's not perfect. And I will say this, if you're not following Shawn on Instagram, you need to, because you'll be able to see, I'm assuming, the stuff you're doing right now, hopefully. You'll put some of the people can see really, how it came up or how it came out in much more crisp detail than we can get on the screen. We're high def here, but high def is not enough to get some of the fine line work that you have there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm using a good webcam, but it's still a webcam. My
StreamYard also downscales everything.
It does, yeah.
Oh, they compress stuff.
Yeah,
okay. I gotcha.
I think StreamYard's 1080p. If I'm not mistaken.
Right, which is not bad, and I mean it worked reliably, so you can't fault them. But yes, you do lose a little. I love the lines you're getting out of that when you pull it sideways like that.
Isn't it? It's so fun. It is. I wish I knew. Like, I just have to do it more to understand what I'm really getting from it, I guess. But it's just fun to play with.
Your card's available. You have to pay for it. It's like 700 whatever points. I think
okay.
Dave, one of your images I think is up there too, a Moon Knight one. I'll send it to you. See if that this looks like you. I could be wrong.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Art9 says he has to go to the bathroom now too.
Uh-oh. I just might
run. Yeah, there are times that just from having drawn a lot of Marvel comics and DC comics, depending on what the set is, I end up, they just reprint stuff, which is very cool. And it's always cool to see when people come up with it. You know what I would really like to do though, Shawn? One of these days I want to do a painted card. Like, one of the actual cards. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like the old Marvel card stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, Dan DeSantos just did a whole set of Masterworks. Now, I would not want to try and take that on. That it was a massive job. I think it almost killed him. He did beautiful, beautiful work.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yep.
That is a lot. But I mean, Marvel Snap asked me to start hand painting the cards I'm doing for them. So my
Really?
last 3 cards are all hand painted, and that's been a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. Well, you have so much more control, and your colors are. I mean, they are wild, but they
Yeah, they are.
are beautiful. I mean, you
Thank
can
you.
go wild and make it, and just it turns to, it looks terrible. Your stuff, you have the advantage of having such a great design sense, and it really comes through the colors too. And any
Yeah,
color,
I did learn that from Brian. I remember Brian, like, because I love Brian's colors. And it's funny, at OAX, people started to realize where my palettes were coming from because Brian was next to me. They're like, "Wait a minute!" I was like, "Yeah, he taught me." But Brian taught me, as long as I get my values and my design my values properly, you can pretty much get away with some crazy color choices.
yeah,
And
I
so,
think that's true. Yeah, um, I definitely am not adventurous with colors right now, but I'm still young, 52. Hopefully, I've got a lot more time ahead of me to keep doing this. I'll get better.
yeah, I saw you. I forget where. I think it maybe was a post of yours, or maybe it was on a podcast. You were talking about you're trying to be more colorful, and you're having trouble with it.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I have a painting that I just did. I wish I could show. I was much more colorful. It was such a struggle for me to do. I really fought with it. I think I'd get in a lot of trouble showing it. So I'm not going to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that's right. What is it? What do you think it is about the color that makes it difficult for you?
A big part of it is just the process. And we had Greg Staples on. This is a few months ago, and that
Hmm.
was a huge help for me, kind of breaking out of that. Just the way that he works, the way that I've been working is to ink a picture, so it's inked, and then using black
Right.
colored pencil, and then using a fairly dark underpainting layer, and then going
Uh
off of
huh.
that, and that's automatically going to make all the colors much more dim, and it makes it more difficult. And so,
Do you
I'm
use any opaque medium?
yes, it's almost all opaque. I do build it up uh, transparent, and then I go opaque.
Okay. Okay.
So I can get some color, but I find it's tough. But yeah, Greg's method, Greg Staples, it really helped with that
Yeah.
for both me and for Eric. So
Yeah,
Awesome.
that was a really important stream.
it was, and in so many ways, what he taught us really was, this is how actual painters actually paint, guys.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I need to
So
learn that.
yeah, yeah. So I felt like we really learned. I still love so many of the things about the way that we were painting, but uh, it had its limitations.
See,
Rustic.
inking this way just feels like I'm playing. Like,
Yeah,
I think what happens is you get, like, I start doing this, and then I feel like I don't know what I'm doing at all. I'm just making a mess, and I think if I just see it through, I'll be happy with it.
yeah, I think it's already looking like it's really working, especially all of that ink on his head. It's very organized actually, so it really works on his forehead. But then once you
Oh,
put the
here,
line
yeah,
across for the top of his head, that nice clean line, it just makes
here.
that sing, that just the contrast is
Okay,
great.
cool. That's good to know.
There's a question for everyone on the stream. Did you create your own unique style, or were you mostly influenced by other artists? Also, how long did it take you to develop your style?
Sean?
The way I used to talk about this, I mean, when you're a young artist, you're obviously emulating a lot of the art that you're a fan of. But I've always believed that style is innate to you, like you. It's like a fingerprint. It's you. It's the way you see the world. It's the way you translate information. It's just natural. I'm like, I know my work is very cartoony and stylized, but it's not like it's a choice I made. It's the natural way I see and draw. I mean, I use graphic shapes because they make sense to me. They allow me to understand the logic behind, like, how to render that form and how to see a silhouette properly. So I think you can get into a little bit of trouble when you're trying to copy another artist too much, and you're not letting yourself come through at some point. But I think it's a natural. The way I always saw it was you copy a bunch of artists when you're young, and it teaches you a lot of valuable information that you then translate through your natural sensibilities, and it just becomes you over time if you can let go of having to copy from them all the time. I don't know. That's just my thought. What do you think, Dave?
I absolutely. I think for me, everything that I know, I've taken from other artists. I feel like in so much as I have a style, it is just an amalgamation of Mark Silvestri and the Kubert brothers, and I could go on and on. Travis Charest and Dale Keown, and so many incredible artists. And my style has evolved over the years as I've just brought in more artists, and also it does evolve just through your own aesthetic. And so there are some things that I do that I've just found have worked for me, and a lot of them are happy accidents. You mentioned a few of those tonight to Shawn. It happens, and then it kind of becomes part of your style. So there is that there too. But I feel like there are some artists out there that I see that really just seem to come from nothing, like this really inventive style that I just can't quite pinpoint what the beginning of that was. And I've just never been one of those artists. And I don't think
me neither.
You can't aspire to be that. I think that is or it's not.
Yeah, like someone like Bill Sienkiewicz. Like, I mean, you can. I mean, I guess you can see like where some of the early development came from, but I mean, he's unto himself.
Oh yeah.
And Magnola, like, where does that come from? I mean, it's crazy.
Right. And you can point out the Bridgman, and you can point out a few influences or some that in there. But ultimately, yeah, it's just his own thing. And you can see he really was, well, like you were saying, there are those influences that he found when he was young, and then he just started finding his own voice incredibly. So it's a tough thing, but I don't personally think it's something that you should be actively pursuing when you're learning how to draw. What you really want to do. Now, you want to think, and like Shawn said again, you want to think about the way that you naturally think. And for me, I actually think in very graphic shapes too. Very different than yours, Shawn, but similar in a way. I can't render from nothing. I need to draw black shapes. And I think that's the Bridgman influence for me too. But
yes, definitely.
And so, some decisions you make will just come naturally from that. But then a lot of it is copying other artists, which I highly, highly recommend. There's 100 years of comic illustration, and then there's just illustration. There's just so much work out there, and so many of these problems have been solved by other artists, and trying to do it all yourself from nothing, I think, is foolhardy.
Yeah, I agree.
I love this style.
I mean, I think I'm too scared to work this way. But I think if I spent more time just like playing like this, maybe it wouldn't be.
Yeah. I think this is a great style too. If you're doing something that's like a narrative story, and you want to do something that's a different tone coming into something like this, I think would be great.
Yeah, like I feel like this would be a good fit for like a Batman or a Spawn story.
Henry Jeremic asked Dave, "Is Eric Grove still here, or did he leave?"
I'm still here. just watching. Yeah, we're just watching.
All right.
Yeah, those are some interesting marks in here.
Yeah,
that was lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of reminds me a little bit of Cully Hamner. He has
totally.
like a bit of a Leyendecker influence almost, but he's doing it with black and white as opposed to paint.
Yeah, totally. And I think, like, honestly, when I think about it, like, my thinking behind this and this is very similar to Cully's thinking when he does it too. It just, it's a different way of achieving a similar effect, I think.
Yeah. And this really is 3 times as fast.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. I mean,
I wonder if there's a way that you could incorporate this really with the cleaner style all in one piece. And I think that would take probably a little while to.
you know what? I think if I spent enough time doing this, that would creep in because, like you said, I just have a natural means of finding control in things. And I think once I understood the logic of what I was doing here, I'd be bringing in some of that dry brush and controlled line. Like I think of like right now, in fact, let's do it. I think what this is missing is a bold outline with my brush. So let's try to get that in and see if that helps.
Russick says, be sure to follow Shawn on Instagram. It is instagram.com inkpulp. Shawn's website is inkpulpinstruction.com. And on YouTube, you can find him at inkpulp. So inkpulp basically everywhere. And you do a lot of podcasts with.
Yes. Yeah, we haven't talked about that. Yeah, I have a podcast with Eric Kinetti and Matteo Scalera.
Yeah, which is great. So definitely check that out, everyone. Also, Eric Kinetti, we have had on the channel. That was last year. He was amazing. Someone I'd love to have back again. He just knows his stuff. You know, look at that line.
He does.
Did you see that line, Eric? Look at that.
Oh yeah,
amazing. And at some point, we'd like to get Matteo to come on. I know we talked about it. That would be great. He's another one of my favorites. So it's Matteo. A killer lineup of artists that you have there. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. Matteo is so good.
Oh. Yeah, this stuff seems like wizardry to me.
It is wizardry. It is absolute because he not only is he so good, he's so fast. That the combination of that makes it just unreal.
Look at that.
Yeah, that really helped it, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It just completely.
Russ wants to know what lightbox you were using, Shawn. The brand.
What was the question?
I think lightbox. Yeah.
It's a light pad. So it's an LED light box. It's about a ½ inch thick. It doesn't heat up. I mean, I spent my early years with like an old, giant, clunky light box. I mean, it was a great light box. Porter Trace made it. But it got hot. My arms were always sweating, smearing graphite everywhere.
Sorry, what was the brand? Yeah.
Light Pad.
Light Pad? Okay.
Light Pad, yeah. Eric turned me on to them.
It looks like something you could just pack with you and bring to a convention even.
You absolutely could. Actually, it's funny. I'm now using the brush to mimic the marks I made with the pen.
Actual Dracula says, Shawn, thank you for continuing to provide a platform for the treasure that is Matteo and the wonderful things that spill out of his brain. He's never allowed to leave the podcast. And JDS CT is still here. So it's good to know. I love this one. I mean, I love the other one too, but I think I'm partial to this one right now just because this is just like a total experiment on our channel. Everyone, we're getting to watch this happen right here, and look at it.
Yeah, I'm making some discoveries.
Yeah. It's such a great lesson for the, how do you develop your style? Well, you experiment and try things and, just keep going with it until it turns into something, which I think it was looking pretty cool from the beginning, but it was tough to see where you're going to go with it.
Yeah, I didn't know where I was going to go with it, to be honest. I was just riding the dragon. But yeah, now I'm happy I did.
Yeah.
Well, I think it would be fun to just do this more.
I think this would be a very popular look for you, I think. I know I want one.
Yeah, I honestly, I've been like toying with this on and off for a while, and just haven't had the confidence to keep going with it. But this is the first time where I feel like I'm getting somewhere with it. I think before I tried to control it too much,
Mhm.
and now I'm not, and I think that's the key.
But there's something about drawing in front of an audience too that makes you just go for it. You really have no choice but to just keep moving.
Right. Totally. Yeah. All right. This is working.
Extreme Maybe says the way you use that brush reminds me of how you would use a tattoo machine. Just boom. I don't know what that means, Extreme Maybe, but
Yeah, I don't know.
it is pretty impressive.
I might be tattooing in the very near future.
Really? So have you done it before?
I've been practicing. I've done it a little bit before, and a good friend of mine is a really famous tattoo artist, and he just opened up. Well, it's not even open yet. He's opening up a shop about 10 minutes from me, and he wants me to come in and learn and join him in there.
Well, you have to do it just for the experience, even.
Yeah. I definitely want it. Definitely. I mean, that's the plan. I'm just speaking hesitantly because it's a little daunting, but I'm definitely going to do it.
Chris Burke says, steady as a surgeon.
I have been called a surgeon with my inks so much at cons. It's become like a thing where like I'm the surgeon.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've never had a huge amount of control. It's just there's definitely no one's ever called me a surgeon with the pencils or with the inks. But
I mean, I don't know if it's a good thing. It's just
no, I think it is, especially when you can mix it with the looser elements and do the kinds of thing you're doing here, and on the other piece with the dry brushing. I think it's great. I had to learn early on for me to survive in the business that I had to let that go and do the best that I could, but I don't have the level of control that like Scott Williams,
Oh my God.
But
I
would say,
remember when I learned that his mark, like I always assumed his mark making was a nib,
yeah,
and Mark Irwin told me it was a brush, and I just lost. I was like, I give up.
yeah, it's crazy. I thought he was using a nib for a long time. I actually worked in a studio when I first started. He was in the same studio, and I was so focused on trying to learn how to pencil that I didn't pay attention.
Oh wow.
A lot of opportunities lost early on. We had a whole production department, and like every stage of making a comic, everybody was doing lettering, the whole thing, and I learned nothing because I just wanted to learn how to pencil. I learned how to pencil.
Well, it served you well.
Yeah,
it definitely did.
Eric Brent says, Shawn and David, since you are both southpaws, is there something you find you do differently from right-handed artists you've worked with?
I don't think so. Have you, David?
The only thing I would say is, for some reason, left-handed artists, in my experience, tend to smudge a little bit more.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay, and I don't quite know why that is, but it's true. And a lot of times at conventions, I'll get sketchbooks that have the rings or really heavy.
Right.
And it can be difficult to draw it. And,
Do you find it's easier to draw faces facing the right?
Well, I do for sure.
Being a left-handed, yeah.
Yeah,
I used to, and then I forced myself because I noticed I was doing it a lot when I was working on books, and then I forced myself to like not allow myself to default to that and just started drawing it. But but I don't know. I gotta look at my sketches to see if I do it too much. No, I'm switching it around.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have a real tendency to draw my faces to the right. I did it here too. It's just, and I have to consciously think about it to not do that. Mladen Kovacevic. Kovacevic. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Mladen it says, Shawn, do you ever get to the stage and then get paralyzed because you weren't planning it, but it looks better than you expected it, and you're afraid to make a wrong move to keep going? So at this stage now, and this is really working, has there been a stage through this where
No, because I'm just of the mindset that this is a giant experiment. So I'm not even looking at the totality of the piece, thinking if it's good or bad right now. I'm just going with it, and I'm making some discoveries. I guess what I'm saying is I'm learning that with this technique, it's just about allowing discoveries to happen. So I'm throwing caution to the wind and just throwing lines around and letting them tell me like what's working and what's not. And
that's
informing
the Jim Mafood method, to just
yeah, it
go with
totally
it.
is.
Yeah. And he creates some of the most beautiful stuff out there, completely not worrying about if anybody ever sees it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you liked these marks I was making with the side of that parallel pen. I mean, that's just me trying to be Jim, honestly. Like, I see him make those marks. I'm like, those are so fun. I want to make those marks.
Henry Jeremick asks, Dave, would you consider bringing pencils of Daredevil to give to Klaus Janson in Dallas so he can ink it later when he returns to Monday Night Draw? I'd love to see his inks on your pencils. That would be amazing, and I would love to see it. And yes, I would 100% do that. And I'd love to have him back. He was such a great guest.
Klaus is amazing.
Yeah, he really is. He's great. So yes, I would love to do that, and we will have to talk about that. I think that's a great idea. So thank you.
You know what? I'm actually going to finish this. I'm almost done.
I know. Yeah. We're at 10:12. Normally we finish at 10, but I'm looking at this and I'm so invested at this point. I want to see this done.
I'll be done real soon.
It's all right. It's okay.
I'm just going to end the show. See ya.
Oh, look at those lines. It's beautiful. It's not only are they beautiful finished, but it's really just, it's a pleasure to watch them go down. Just feels
Thank
good.
you. All right. I think if I just scribble with this guy a little bit.
And Viking Actual, when you're finished, you'd like to do a side-by-side comparison of the first one to this one.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's done. I don't think I need to. I guess I see a few areas I could add some extreme dry brush, so I got to dry my brush out a lot. But
Jason, we mean a side-by-side comparison of the first inking that Shawn did in the second one, not this thing.
Yeah. I'll pull that in just a second. Let me just. I think if I pull in some more dry brush, I think that's the only thing it needs.
Would these guys be interested in doing the ink along with us with Arthur's pencils?
These guys being us too?
Well, any of your followers, I guess. They seem to be enjoying learning how to ink.
Yeah, you know what? So actually, if you could just talk about that quickly, what we've got coming up. We talked about this. I don't know when it is exactly, but a bunch of us are going to be inking some Arthur Adams pencils. We're all going to get it, print it out, and ink it. Eric, you going to do it?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's something that you guys might like to do. I know a lot of you draw along on these streams, and I highly recommend you do. It's the best way to learn is to do it yourself while you watch. But yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun for everyone, and we'd love to see as many as possible. And it'd be great to show them on the stream, just kind of run through them and let everybody see how they turned out. Look at that. Those lines that you put on that neck, that is so incredibly bold. Like it's such a, yeah, it blows me away because they are big lines and they work.
Yeah,
so
they are.
It's just a lot of guts. And that's a picture that is finished. It was beautiful. And then it's such a risk, but I mean, you know what you're doing, and they worked great. They look great.
I mean, I guessed well.
Yes.
And if you like, just before we end real quick, because people always ask me, what if you make a mistake? I have this golden, so flat white paint, which is great. And it's a really nice, opaque, flat white. And you can cover stuff up with it.
All right.
And that's that.
Beautiful. So yeah, I want to mention again, everyone, you'll be able to see this on Instagram. I'm sure, by tomorrow or within the next couple of days.
Yeah, I'll post it tomorrow. What I'll do is I'll finish this one. You guys want to see them side by side?
Yes.
I'll finish this one. And let me pull my camera back so you can see it better. Yeah. So I'll finish this one and then I'll just post them side by side and see what everyone thinks. I mean, honestly, they're not terribly different. I mean, one's obviously more controlled, but I see the same thought process occurring.
Yes. And the more tight one isn't finished. There's more that you need to do with it, but I get a pretty good sense of it at that point. I'll be really
I'll post them tomorrow. I'll finish this first thing when I get in the studio because there's not much left, and then I'll post them side by side on Instagram so you guys can see it, and maybe I'll have everyone vote on their favorite one and see what we think, because I think I want to play with this a lot more.
Yeah, I love it. I think it looks so great. It's and I love that you did it here, really for the first time trying some of that stuff. So
yeah, I'm happy with myself because I was nervous coming into the show. I didn't want to show my ass, but then I was like, I'm just gonna show my ass, and it worked out.
Johnny D has a super chat for $5. He says Sean's Batman looks like he's about a second from pimp slapping a goon. It looks so good. You can see the anger in him.
Yeah, and that gets back to the shape and the attitude. I mean that's where my cartooning comes in. I always hated when I did a commission and it was just like a static face. Like I always try to make some emotion in there, and in cartooning, exaggerating that really helps me.
Right. Now we've got a super chat from Taz for $5, and thank you so much, Taz. And he asks if we lost his super chat, and if we did, I really apologize. And it was complimenting your thumbnails, which are beautiful, and he was asking me if Ink Pulp Instructions were getting new classes.
Yes. So I'm in a transition right now where I'm moving everything to my own personal site. I know I have inkpulpinstruction.com and the videos are there, but when you click on them, it takes you to Gumroad. So I'm building out my own site so everything can be in one spot. But also this weekend, I'm shooting the first 3 videos of a 7-part series on figure drawing and that'll be free on my YouTube channel. So we're going to shoot it this weekend. Then my video guy has to edit it and stuff, and we'll start getting those up hopefully in the next month or 2. But those will be like free classes on YouTube. Okay. And if you subscribe to my newsletter, I've turned that into like lessons. So like today I scheduled my newsletter for April 1st, and it's basically how to achieve the dry brush effect that I get.
All right, awesome. Well, so if you don't follow Sean's newsletter, definitely make sure to go ahead and do that. And also you can find him on YouTube to find some of those tutorials. It's at Ink Pulp. So just look up Ink Pulp. You'll find his YouTube. You'll find his Instagram and all of his stuff. Before we go, I want to see Eric's again and see if you kind of give some of that dry brush a try. How's that coming along?
I didn't do any dry brush, but
just
try to get what I could.
I do like the graphic shapes you're using, Eric.
Yeah, I really try to focus on that. I think this is I really think everyone who's watching should try that. Try some more shape design. I think.
And I'm giving you a hard time about not doing the dry brush.
Yeah.
But yeah, those shapes that you did, I think work really, really well. And that's a real departure for your stuff. So
It was a lot of fun. Definitely fun trying something different. It's always great to see how it might turn out.
Yeah. Well, I know I got a lot out of this
Dave,
one.
yours came out amazing.
Thank you.
I like the little piece of COVID that's coming out of his mouth.
It's spit. It's supposed to be spit. I didn't, let me just cheapo ink that. COVID. There we go. So yeah, I learned a lot from this one, and not the least of which is to get the right paper. So I'm going to do that too. But, this has been absolutely amazing. Watching really a master ink and ink in two totally different ways and getting a really different result, but you can really see your style come through with both of them. I think it's amazing.
Thank you.
This has been
Thank you.
a huge pleasure. Thank you.
I got lucky. Well, thank you for having me. I really had a lot of fun doing this, and I definitely want to do more of that.
Well, absolutely. Well, one of these days, hopefully we can get you to come back on again, and maybe we can do some stuff with color even.
Oh, that'd be fun. That'd be a lot of fun. Yeah, I'd love to come back. That'd be great.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone so much for staying up with us tonight and drawing and inking. Hopefully you guys did some of it yourselves, and hopefully if you didn't, you'll give it a try a little later on. But everyone have a great weekend, a great Easter, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.